My name is Mark Wiggins, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Wbma, or What Burns My Ass. And the purpose of me doing this channel is to tell you what burns my ass, and probably tell you what burns the ass of a lot of other fellow Americans. This happens to be an election year, which is one of my main motivations for starting this channel, because we are voting for the same two people that we had voted for in the prior election. I didn't like either one of them then, and I don't particularly like either one of them now, although I think there is a much more clearer choice of one over the other. But I also wanted to tell you some of the people that I watched that have motivated me over the years. Like, I love Steven Crowder. His commentary is hilarious. He's obviously a comedian. He does What Changed My Mind, abortion is murder, changed my mind. I mean, that's ingenious. I might want to do something similar to that in the future. I don't know if it's copyright or not, so I better be careful. Anyways, long story short, I really like the gentleman. He's smart. He's had some controversies, but I generally like his channel. I also watch Amala Ekpundobi. Wow, that's a name to pronounce. Ekpundobi. Akpundobi. Anyways, long story short, I like her channel a lot. She's such a beautiful woman. She's just amazingly gorgeous. I think sometimes she tamps down her looks, because sometimes I've seen her hair done really nice with braids. She looks like a supermodel. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. I listen to the LFR channel, which is a black conservative channel. I was going to use his services, but everybody wants us an exorbitant amount of money for everything, and I just couldn't afford his classes. Although, I mean, I like his channel, and he's pretty good, and I think he probably could have helped me. I just can't afford it right now. I listen to Tucker Carlson, which he's grossly misunderstood by anybody that is not a conservative or listens to MSDNC or one of the other, CNN. They hate his guts, and they really don't know him. They just don't want to hear the truth from him. I find him to be extremely honest. He says what's on his mind. He points out the truth on a lot of topics. And because people don't like what he has to say because it goes against Joe Biden or somebody else they love, or a Democratic politician they like, they hate his guts. I think the fact that he pointed out what really happened on January 6th was very important. And I think the fact that he actually went to Russia and spoke to Putin, which obviously nobody else has done lately from the United States, I think that was incredibly brave and amazing that he did that. I like Russell Brand, who's extremely hilarious. I think he's a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I like his channel a lot. He's a lot smarter than just a kooky comedian, most kooky comedians. I listen to Charlie Kirk because another extraordinarily intelligent man. I love the way he can just debate anybody on any topic and just blow them away with facts. And people don't like him for that reason, because if you're woke, or if you want if you want to believe something about the candidate you believe in, or if you want to believe things about social issues that you want to believe, or abortion, or anything like that, he can blow you away with the facts and tremendous arguments that will just make you feel small, because he's just that good. I listen to Dave Rubin, who is also a fellow gay YouTuber. I don't want to bring my sexual orientation much up in this channel, but I will discuss it, especially if it involves topics involving the LGBTQ community. But I don't want to make that a primary part of my channel. I may actually make some LGBTQ specific videos in the future. I listen to A Black Conservative Perspective. He's another black conservative gentleman. I like his channel. He posts entirely too much, but that's good for him. I mean, he's making lots of money. He has lots of followers. I just like his channel. I listen to Matt Walsh, who is, again, intelligent. He does documentaries. I like a lot of his perspective. I think he's pretty much anti-gay, so I have a little bit of a problem with him. But see, I'm the type of person, I don't need somebody to validate who I am or my sexuality or anything like that. I don't need that. That's, if you don't like who I am, that's great. If you don't want to make, if I wanted to get married and you don't want to make my wedding cake, I have no problem with that. If it's a religious problem for you, I have no problem with that. I really don't. I don't need people's validation. Once you get to my age, you don't care. You just don't. I listen to The Quartering. He's a very nice guy. He's got his own coffee brand. Try some. I listen to Jordan Peterson because he's basically, I think he's a genius. I think the man's extremely intelligent. He's very anti-woke. He got himself in a lot of problems because he is so intelligent, and the Canadian government cracked down on him because he is so woke, and they basically try to take his license and everything else because he didn't want to go along with this non-binary crap, which I don't think a lot of other people do, or the gentleman that, you know, wore these massive breasts to class, these fake breasts, claiming that he was trans. It's ridiculous, and I understand him not wanting to cow down to any of that, and I think our society is changing towards that point of view right now. Anyways, I listen to Bill Maher, who's liberal, and the thing about it is he's smart, and he's coming to the realization that woke is bad. But I just don't understand how he keeps drinking the coffee or drinking the Kool-Aid about Joe Biden. I just don't understand how he can still continue to support that man and says that he's doing a wonderful job, because honestly, I don't think 90% of Americans feel the same way. I listen to Douglas Murray. Again, another great commentator. Love his stuff. So these are the people that motivated me to do this channel. And, you know, several things that happened over the last several years. So I kind of want to tell you a little bit about who I am. I was born on Cape Cod in 1968. I was born the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, which is probably not a great day to commemorate, but it is what it is. It is the date. So I was born in Otis Air Force Base. I'm one of 3 Vietnam babies. Matter of fact, we're almost all a year apart, because I call it what you call leave babies. Every time my dad got leave from Vietnam, my mom had a baby. So we're all named after, our names are all taken from the Bible, Katrina, Timothy, and Mark. Not that my mother, well, she was religious. I was actually raised Jehovah's Witness, which is probably part of what instilled the conservative values that I do have. I'm no longer Jehovah's Witness. My mother's no longer practicing in the witnesses as well. I understand their beliefs, and I have no problem with them. I just think they're overzealous. I think they take them too far. I think a lot of people think they're a cult, which they are not. At least not the sect that I was in Henrietta, New York. It was a very nice church. The people were very nice. They just wanted you to go to the Kingdom Hall way too many times, which is their name for their church, Kingdom Hall. And, you know, they're a very good religion. The only difference between them and I think most of other Christian denominations is they don't believe in the Trinity. So they believe in the Holy Ghost. They don't believe they don't believe Jesus is God. They believe he's the Son of God. But I don't want to get too religious. But that's how I was raised, Jehovah's Witness. And like I said, I think that instilled a lot of concern. Plus, my parents were good parents. I mean, they taught me how to say please and thank you and excuse me. And I still do that today, you know, and I'm in my 50s. So, you know, hey, if you start children early, it'll last them for the rest of their life. That's what makes me mad. When you walk into Walmart and you see grown parents walking out the entrance and in the exit with their children in tow, all that does is tell children that you don't have to follow rules. And I don't think people really realize by doing that in front of their children that they're setting that kind of example. And those are the things that burn my ass, because I think parenting has just gone to pot in this country. But I don't want to go too much farther. I'll touch on that later in another episode of Wbma. And I grew up in Rochester, New York, and it was very difficult. Also being Jehovah's Witness in school, because you know, I couldn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. I couldn't hold my hand over my heart like everybody else and say the pledge. So that kind of alienated you. Back in the 80s and late 70s, parents still baked. So a lot of the moms, like if it was their kid's birthday, she would bring in birthday cupcakes with every kid's name in the class on the cupcake. their cupcake, or they would bring Easter cookies, big egg Easter cookies. And one year, this mother made these giant jack-o'-lantern shortbread cookies with orange sprinkles all over the top and a cute little jack-o'-lantern face. And it was huge. They were huge. And all the kids got to sit there and eat their jack-o'-lantern cookie while I had to sit there and watch them and see my marked cookie sit on the teacher's desk, and I wasn't allowed to eat it. So it was a very alienating religion. And besides that, too, when you went on Christmas break, kids would come back with all their Christmas presents, and then you didn't. But what my parents did, called it special day, and then they wrapped presents in non-Christmas color wrapping. So they did the best I can based on on the restrictions of being Jehovah's Witness. Matter of fact, my dad wasn't really very involved in the witness. It was mostly my mother. Anyways, so that's basically what instilled a lot of my values. And Rochester, New York I love Cape Cod. It's 110 miles long, 70 miles wide, and beach on every side. Can't go wrong. It's just a gorgeous place. I think they're overdeveloping it, just like everywhere else in this country. So I think they're going to ruin the atmosphere that brings people to Cape Cod. And Rochester, New York is a gorgeous city. It is beautiful. You have the Erie Canal. We have the Genesee River, which is one of the few rivers in the world that actually that flows directly north. And it's a beautiful city. The problem with Rochester is the crime, and that's due to Rochester was basically like the East Coast Silicon Valley. If you wanted the job, you would go to Rochester, New York, because Kodak was started in Rochester, Xerox started in Rochester, Bausch & Lomb started in Rochester, General Motors. If you bought any cars during the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it had a Rochester Jet 2 carburetor on it, which is part of Rochester Products. I mean, so Rochester was a hub of a lot of good-paying jobs. But what that did was that drove a lot of drug dealers from New York City into Rochester to supply drugs to the rich young kids or with parents that had, made good incomes. And that really drove up the crime in Rochester. And unfortunately, it's still pretty bad. They have an extremely high crime rate. It's a shame because the architecture in Rochester is gorgeous. It's been around since the late 1800s and or even some cases earlier, but it's just beautiful. There's Victorian and there's a Frank Lloyd Wright house there as well. It's a beautiful city, but like I said, that's where I got most of my values from, and also being gay in a school in upstate New York was very, very hard because when you're a kid, the slur that they used during the 70s and 80s was F-A-G. I don't want to say it on there because I don't want to get flagged by YouTube. And they used it a lot. And, it was basically used as a slur. Whether you were gay or not was irrelevant. But they used to call me that a lot. And I didn't really know I was at that age. I kind of thought I might be. And you don't really realize it until you become, the age of sexuality. You start getting your teens. You're like, yeah, this is what turns me on, doesn't turn me on. Although I did not come out until I was 25 years old. I did have sex with a lot of women because when I went in the military after high school, I went to Germany and I was there for 2.5 years. And I was there when the Berlin Wall came down. I have a piece of it this big. And I didn't have sex until I was in my 20s because of my conservative values from being a witness. And I didn't have sex till I think it was my 20th birthday. She wasn't very pretty and she had a broken arm, but it was like a Dorito. I had to go for the entire bag. And I went, yaha. And I had sex almost every night I went out on the weekends with a different girl all the time. I did have a girlfriend there for a while. I was actually thinking about contemplating marrying her, but I was smart because she wanted me to marry her before we went to the United States, and I wanted to make sure she liked it there, blah, blah, blah. It's a long story. I might get more detailed into my military career and things that happened in my military, because there's a lot of things that happened that have shaped things in my life. Being in Germany when the wall came down was absolutely amazing. Most people have no idea what an experience like that would be. It was spectacular. It really was. It was an amazing time in the world. So I didn't come out and I didn't violate my oath when I joined, which is don't have sex with men, because first of all, I wasn't sure if I was or wasn't. I mean, I kind of thought I was gay, but I wasn't sure. And then I had sex with women, and I liked it, so it was okay. But eventually, you figure out who you are and what you prefer, and it's not It's not a choice. It isn't. It is just what gender does and does not turn you on. And I think gender or sexuality is a lot more fluid than anybody wants to believe. But I don't want to get pushy and start saying all this, agenda crap. I don't want to be accused of pushing an agenda, so I won't get into all that. So that's how I became who I am. I live in Palm Springs, California, which is a big gay mecca. There's some pros and cons to living here as well, and I'll discuss that in another version of what burns my ass. And also, so let's move on. I want to talk about some topics that I wanted to get into over that's occurred over the last couple years. Okay, for example, let's talk about January 6th. It wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't. It was a huge security mistake. Unfortunately, a lot of people did get injured. I think over 80 people got injured. Of course, they're claiming that 5 people died, but you can't say that. Not honestly. Only one person died, and her name was Ashley Babbitt, and she was an Air Force vet, and she was shot through a door, and I think that's wrong. But when you do certain things like they did in breaking into the Capitol and whatever, you take those risks, and obviously she did. And then the only other person they said that died was Brian Sicknick, which they're trying to say it happened because he got hit by a fire extinguisher, which turned out to be a lie. Matter of fact, there's a video of him walking around after supposedly he was hit by this fire extinguisher, picking up garbage and moving things around the Capitol. And he didn't die for days later. It was from a heart attack. So, and then there's a couple other people that died, I guess, of heart attacks or suicide afterwards, supposedly due to post-traumatic PTSD. It could be true, could not be true, can't be proven. It's psychological things are just that way. But Donald Trump, I don't believe, planned that, and you can see that by the speech he made that says, "We will peacefully and patriotically march down to the Capitol and let our voices be heard." And then on top of that, if he wanted an insurrection, why did he offer Nancy Pelosi, the National Guard, to be there at the time during the pre Capitol rally and then the rally at the Capitol? And Trump said that he offered it to Nancy Pelosi and she turned it down. And she then lied about it. She said that didn't happen. And then now here it is years later, her daughter was doing a documentary and caught her admitting on tape that it was her fault and that she didn't, she should have accepted the National Guard. They should have been there. She said she didn't want it at the time, supposedly, because she didn't like the optics. But look at the optics we got. So obviously it was not a very good decision. And let me tell you something. The reason January 6th happened was there was a lot of people, okay? There were several things that happened. First of all, it was very fishy. The whole way that the campaign went down, or the way the election night went down, it was extremely fishy. First of all, Donald Trump won states that had all other candidates in the history of elections had won those particular states. You automatically were considered the president. I mean, you won. He won those states and still lost. Now, that's odd, okay? Especially seeing it was the first time. So that put some doubts in a lot of people's mind. Besides the fact that he was so far ahead, and then all of a sudden these write-in votes just crushed him. That seemed fishy. But he also did it to himself because he opened his big mouth and said what he said about John McCain. Like he liked prisoners of war that didn't, or he liked soldiers that didn't get caught, and that cost him a lot of votes. Not just in Arizona, but a lot of votes. And John McCain was a great man. I God bless that man. I think he was a great person. But it's a shame he didn't become president. I kind of liked him. But Now, the reason January 6th happened was there was a gentleman in Georgia that said that there was paper ballots that were written on different types of paper, and there was only supposed to be one. So that seemed fishy. He also said that he could tell the difference between a Republican ballot and a Democrat ballot. Seemed fishy. He was a counterfeit expert. So if you could tell what bills are counterfeit and which are not counterfeit, you should be able to tell the difference between a fake ballot and a real ballot. There was also another gentleman that drove a truck from Philadelphia or Pittsburgh to Buffalo, and he claimed that he drove a bunch of Biden ballots from there to upstate New York. But this is why January 6th happened. The media is not doing their job. They're giving commentary and pushing people into their beliefs, their political beliefs, towards the candidate they want to win, and so on. And the reason and so what, instead of telling the truth or doing their job and saying, hey, this counterfeit guy said that these ballots are fake and this is, they never reported that guy, if that guy was ever dispelled as a fraud, or how he was wrong, or how the gentleman that said he drove the truckload of ballots from Pennsylvania to upstate New York, why didn't any of the media debunk that story? So that people didn't, on January 6th, would have said, oh, you know what? All the things that seemed fraudulent were proven wrong. If they had done that, January 6th would have never have happened. Okay? That and the fact that the National Guard should have been there when it was offered. So those things alone, I think, completely debunk the fact that January 6th was an insurrection. All right? Now, I'm going to move on to another controversial topic, which is abortion. Okay? Now, I'm both liberal and conservative on abortion. Okay? Abortion is not a method of birth control. All right? I think every woman should be able to get an abortion if they need one. Okay? But there should be some stipulations. One, okay, first of all, let me tell you something. The whole discussion on abortion should be about abstinence or protection. Either abstain from sex or use some type of protection. And if then that fails and you catch the pregnancy within a reasonable amount of time of conception, you should be able to get an abortion without a problem. Okay? But you should not be able to do that more than 2 times in a lifetime, unless there's a medical exception. That should be done on a case-by-case basis. But there's no reason to get more than 2. I mean, a mistake once, okay, maybe twice, but 3 times, no. Either abstain from sex, or use a condom, or get on birth control. There's no reason other than for you, a woman of fertile years, who lets a man stick his penis in her vagina unprotected, and she doesn't make sure after that sex. And I mean, and why not take the morning after pill? Okay, if you know you had unprotected sex, get the morning after pill. Just do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't. If you know you're fertile and you had unprotected sex, you should make sure afterwards you're not pregnant. You should keep track of your cycle, and if you're late, go buy a stick and pee on it. I mean, take responsibility for your sexual behavior. That's my problem with this country. You don't ever hear the argument about abortion, the abortion discussions. That should be the number one argument against abortion, is there's no reason to not use protection nowadays. This is not the olden days. There's method of birth control all over the country, and there's places where you can get condoms for free. So, go to Planned Parenthood. If you want a condom, go to Planned Parenthood. I'm sure if you ask them, they would provide you with them. There's no excuse today to have unprotected sex. There just isn't. Or, I don't know, do oral or something else that's not going to risk pregnancy. Either way, either abstain or be responsible. That's simple. And there's the RU486, which they call an abortion pill. There's mifepristone and misoprostol, And those are also three what they call abortion pills. Now, I have no problem with those. Those should be available to everybody, but it has to be caught within a reasonable time of conception. You're still killing a baby if you let it go on too far and then you take these pills. So I think there's common sense to the entire abortion scenario. And I think if you followed those rules, I don't think a lot of people would have a problem with abortion. Except for the extremely religious. And I understand their beliefs. And, hey, if you're religious, don't have an abortion. Also, I want to discuss things like gun control. Now, I'm a little bit too liberal about gun control because I think people should be able to have any gun they want, including machine guns. You should be able to have any rifle, any gun, any type. And that should make the IRA super happy because they believe that already. But here's where I differ from the NRA, because I'm not a big NRA person. I think they go overboard. I think they push too much. And the fact that we're having over 200 and 300 mass shootings in the United States a year is disgusting. Look at Australia, okay? They have almost none. And they have strict gun laws. So the people that say that gun control doesn't work is stupid. They're just stupid. Okay? I don't want to take people's guns away. I don't. I want them to be able to get more guns. But I want you to be responsible. So here's where I differ. I think every gun should have a title with the serial number on it. And that title is issued to the owner. You have to keep track of that gun 365 days a year. And if you lose it or it's stolen and you don't report it and it's used in a crime, you will be charged with a crime. Okay, so that makes gun owners responsible for the guns that they own. And here's the thing. If you want anything other than a pistol or a shotgun, they should require a mental evaluation by a licensed psychologist. I think if we did that, that would change the whole outlook on gun control. But that's too much common sense. I also think that every state should put any person that has a gun permit, their permit on their driver's license. So that when an officer comes up and asks for driver's license or registration, he can look directly on your license, and without calling in on a radio or checking on his computer, he'll automatically know if you have a license to carry. And that's going to save some lives of the police. And see, that's too much common sense. We can't do something that makes that much sense. Heaven forbid. So that's kind of my stance on gun control. Immigration. Our country has lost its mind, and Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas should be up on charges to do no harm, because that's what they've done by letting 10 million immigrants into this country unvetted. And they're actually flying people directly from South American countries into large cities. And you want to know the reason they're doing that? They're doing that because this is a census year, and if they're counted, that goes towards representation and for electors, and so they can manipulate the way our elections go by doing that. That's why they're showing up in sanctuary cities. Why do you think New York City has not stopped giving them credit cards and debit cards and food and keeping them in high-priced hotels? They're doing that because they want them to come there, because they're going to be counted, and then therefore New York City gets higher, more electors. And also, I think it also goes towards how many House members you have in the House of Representatives. So it's a manipulation. And also, Vermont is actually trying to pass a law where people immigrants are allowed to vote. And that's the whole game the Democrats are playing. And Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas is damaging our country and the security of our nation. Could you imagine if just one of these immigrants did a terrorist attack during this last 3 or 4 years? Joe Biden wouldn't be president right now. He'd be done. He would be done. Just because one person has not done that. They are not vetting these people. And here's another shocking fact. They're finding out that the Chinese have bought a lot of property around military bases in our country. And now there's what could be 20, 30,000 Chinese people that have come across the border over the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There could be some smoke, and that means there's a fire. I'm not saying that's the case, but that's something that should be investigated for sure. I 100%. So, I don't understand how our country just keeps. How can you support a president and the head of Homeland Security doing this to our country? If you want to know why that's bad, all you have to ask is Angela Merkel. Look at the hell that they went through by letting those over 1 million Syrians into their country in a year, in a country the size of Germany. It has been a nightmare of them not integrating, total different social values, different religions. They're not getting along. And within a year, Angela Merkel said that she regretted the whole thing. So if you don't understand why letting over 10 million people in our country is a bad idea, go ask Germany. So that's a few other things. Now here's my other problem is with Republicans. Let me tell you what my problem with the Republicans. And I'm going to tell you a little history of our economics. See, the real beginning of true capitalism, happened after World War II. And that's because all the men came back from war and took back the jobs that the women were doing while they were away. But see, they were paying people back then enough money to live on. One income could supply the entire house with enough income. So the wife could spend money and the husband could spend money, and they could save enough money for their kids' education, and they can suck money away for their retirement, and they could take their kids on vacations and buy them birthday presents and Christmas presents throughout the whole year. That's what keeps our economic circle going. To me, that is MAGA. Okay? And that keeps the wheel going in a direction. When you have the right amount of people employed with the right amount of income who buy the right amount of goods, you keep that wheel moving in a direction, and the country and the economy moves forward. That's only happened twice in our entire country's history. Once right after World War II, and right at the end of Bill Clinton's first term. And that's the way our country should run, though. But we are never going to have that because we got two petulant children for political parties. We have the Republicans, and we have the Democrats, and they're like two kids who hate each other's guts. And mom left them home alone to go out to dinner, and she said, "Now you boys, you be good." And she knew they hate each other. She knew they didn't get along, so she leaves them home. They beat the tar out of each other. They destroy the house, and she comes home and she's shocked. "Oh, why did you kids do this?" That's how I feel about our government. Okay, that's how I feel about the two-party system we have. We have one extreme and the other extreme, and all we keep doing is swinging the pendulum back and forth. I made a chart showing you what the problem is with our economic system, a two-party economic system, and I'm gonna include that under this video. But all we keep doing is swinging the pendulum all the way to the left, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. And every president spends billions of dollars undoing what the prior president did. And that's just a waste of money. It's a waste of everything. If we could keep the economic balance where, unemployment is in balance, where interest rates are in balance, the real estate market's in balance, the stock market's doing wonderful. All the great markers for a great economy are there and they're operating. That will never stay that way, because we just keep swinging the pendulum. And the two differences, the Democrats want to give away, food stamps and welfare, and they have very liberal immigration laws to let all these people in, and they want to tax corporations so they stop hiring people. And not that I think taxing corporations is a bad thing, but that's the problem with the Republicans, though. They want to untax everybody, and then therefore they build up the deficits. And the thing. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. Let's say with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was the first trickle down economic president. Okay, and well, he's not the first. He's the first to really super implement it. And it did. It worked for a while. Everybody knows the early 80s, the economy was doing quite well because he did exactly what he did was he lowered interest rates. He gave the middle class a tax cut. He gave the upper class a tax cut. He loosened regulations on corporations, and the economy started to blossom. And it was going very well for 4 to 5 to 6 years. And the problem is this, and this is what Republicans don't take in consideration, is when you loosen regulations, they are on the belief that people will always do the right thing. If you loosen regulations, the corporations will always do the right thing. That is not true. Okay? Because the thing that doesn't take, that's idealistic. They don't take in consideration the fact that there's greed. And board of directors and CEOs are taking these insane paychecks, these just exorbitant paychecks, and giving everybody drips. So in order for trickle-down economics to work, it has to be a trickle, not a drip. And the Republicans don't seem to understand that. And that's a shame. You know, that's my problem with the Republicans. But then again, you can't also get the Democrats and give welfare, because welfare is basically what caused a lot of problems in the African American community, giving too much. And if you look at communism, that's the problem with communism. Welfare does not work. It does to a point, and within a reasonable means, it does. It's a great way to help people, but it shouldn't be their sole source of income for extended periods of time, because that just perpetuates laziness and the desire not to work and to live off the government dole, and that's not good for anybody. So that's my problem with Republicans, and that's my problem with our two-party system. I mean, I'll give you an example. In the late 90s, Xerox had a CEO come in named Richard Toman, and he was only there 13 months, but he had implemented a inkjet program. He wanted Xerox to get into inkjets, so he spent billions of dollars developing this incredibly great inkjet printer, and it was the first to have 5-color cartridges. The print quality was amazing. The print speed was amazing. The way the paper fit, I mean, everything. It was a great machine. It looked like a miniature Xerox copier. Very nice machine. The only difference was it was $500 in comparison to a $99 Lexmark, which didn't do that much less quality. I mean, it did, but it wasn't worth the price difference. So, you know, that's how consumers reacted, of course, and it didn't sell. So he dumped that. And guess we're the only people that bought a $500 printer for their kid. People that had money and ran companies. Now, you screwed me on my kid's printer. So when I'm going to buy Xerox, if I'm going to buy a copier from my company, am I going to buy it from Xerox? No. He was only the CEO for 13 months. Okay, and their stock. Okay, so with 5 years prior to him becoming the CEO, Xerox went from $152 a share, split 3 ways, went back up to 126, split twice, and then it went back down to split twice, and then it went back up to like 90 something dollars. And that's when this guy took over, and he was supposed to revolutionize, you know, Xerox and boost up its stock, and he destroyed Xerox. Matter of fact, he made their credit rating so bad that nobody wanted to buy them. Canon and their competitor considered buying them, but their credit rating was so bad, they said no. And to fire this gentleman, he got a $13 million severance package. He got $375,000 bonus. He got $200,000 rebate on the life insurance policy, and he gets $880,000 a year for life until he's dead. And then when he dies, his wife gets it. That's criminal. This is what's wrong with this country. It's the 1%. And people like me and most other Americans are just tired of it. There's no excuse for that. No CEO board of directors should be making $20 and $30 and $40 million a year. I don't care what you do for the company. Your income should be based on a certain percentage of the company's income, or what you improve the company's income. But you should be making 20 and 30, $40 million a year. Nobody should make that kind of money. I think that is legalized theft. It just is. If it's a public company, nobody should be making that kind of paycheck for any reason. Nobody is that good. Look at how many companies have failed over the last how many years that were supposed to be based. That's why you're supposed to pay these CEOs and board of directors, because they make the best decisions for these big companies. Look at Blockbuster. Okay, they were offered to buy Netflix at a song and a dance, and they said no. Now where's Blockbuster? Look at Enron. Look at General Motors. They went bankrupt. Chrysler went bankrupt. Washington Mutual went bankrupt. Circuit City went bankrupt. Kodak went bankrupt. Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. Pan Am went bankrupt. Kmart went bankrupt. Sears went bankrupt. MCI went bankrupt. Texaco went bankrupt. These were all done with bad decisions, based on horrible decisions. Xerox would be the biggest company in the world. It'd be bigger than IBM, because Steve Jobs developed Apple computers at Xerox. And they said, oh, no one will ever use that graphical interface. Nobody. So, yeah, go ahead and take it. And then Steve Jobs started Apple. Boy, that was a brilliant decision, because had he not done that, first of all, Microsoft Windows would be around, and every computer in this country would probably be called Xerox compatible. And now let's look at Kodak. Kodak developed digital photography. They developed it. It was their invention. They kind of blew it off and stuck with film for years. So when other companies started coming out with digital cameras, they did nothing. Oh, it's just a fad or whatever. No. Okay? It turned out to be not true. So here you go. Horrible decisions. They were 68,000 people employer in just Rochester, New York alone. They're down to 5,000 or 6,000. Or I think 6,000 or 8,000, somewhere in that ballpark. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. That's staggering. But we paid a billionaire. We paid a guy millions and millions of dollars to make the right decision to bankrupt the company. What is wrong with that? That's my problem with the Republicans, is they think if you deregulate, everything will go the right way. No. Okay? There's two extremes. There's a happy medium. A third party would help rein in the other two towards the center. Because we will never stay in the center for any long period of time, as long as we only have a two-party system making all the economic and budget decisions for our entire government over how many decades. Anyways, so that's who I am. That's how I became who I am, between being raised Jehovah's Witness, being born on the Cape and living in Rochester, New York, and going in the military and spending time in Germany, and also being gay and living in a gay Mecca. And I have so many experiences I want to share with my listeners. I want to be friends. And I also want you to be able to tell me when I am wrong. And if you prove it to me, I will recant it and point your name out. I will say, John Smith said that what I said about January 6th was completely fraudulent, and he proved it to me. He sent me the article, I read it, and it made sense. Okay, I will retract anything that I say is wrong. And here's the thing, I also want to petition senators and our other politicians to do the right thing. Because our judicial system is not doing it. That's another topic I wanted to discuss about it. Going to court in this country is a nightmare. Okay, it's expensive. And if you don't have an attorney and pay $450 an hour, you have zero rights. When I joined the military, okay, I was proud to be an American because I had a country that upheld my rights. That is not happening anymore. Okay, I take you to people court, and I was thrown out for ridiculous reasons. I was denied for ridiculous reasons. In some cases, I never even got to present my case at all because I didn't have an attorney. These judges are running people out of courts for the most insane reasons. And that is why, okay, people do crazy things like mass shootings. Because if they try to handle the problem at work in court, first of all, they would never get to court because they couldn't afford an attorney. And if they showed up in court without an attorney, the judge would just laugh at them and tell them to leave. And if you have a screw loose, that's your answer. Okay? I don't even own a gun, so don't get scared, Wbma listeners. I I'm not a crazy person. I don't have a screw loose. So, anyways, but that is why our country is the way we can't even rely on judges anymore to do the right thing. I mean, look at the case against Donald Trump. All right, they have much more valid cases than the Stormy Williams trial. But that's what they try to get him on, and they did it by manipulating the laws and changing it from a misdemeanor to a felony. And then they had to add an additional crime to make it from a misdemeanor to a felony. Because there had to be, it was a misdemeanor unless it was done in coordination with another crime. So all they did was make the crime 34 times. And then, of course, everybody's fallen for that line a bit. So every news organization is calling him a felon. But that conviction is a joke. It will not stand up in appeal. And all that does is prove that Lady Justice is not blind. That blindfold is not there. When she's holding up the scales, what tips it is money bags. And the thing about this is, we could make courts easier. A very good idea for courts is we should have two courts. We should have those with representation and those without representation, legal representation. So that way the judges in the courts know they're only dealing with professional attorneys who know the law. And then there's other judges that should be like Judge Judy, who could tell the person bringing what's the word I'm trying to think of, bringing the lawsuit to trial. She could say, well, you're in your right. You're within your rights to do this. You're within your rights to file this. You're within your rights to file that. And they can go back and do the right things. And there should be public help to file the right paperwork. Because people are disgusted with our court systems. They have no concern for the American people anymore. And it's legalized extortion. $40 or $50 an hour to pay an attorney. Can you know how much money our country is spending every year on attorney's fees? It's extortion. Look at Fani Willis. I'm trying to remember the name of her boyfriend, but she paid him $750,000, and he never went to court once. $750,000, almost $1 million, $750,000, and he didn't do anything to earn it, and yet he got that money. And then she was taking money from her office and using it for petty cash to go to Las Vegas and have sex with this guy. And then she lied about it in court. And somehow she was not thrown off the Donald Trump case. That doesn't sound fishy to you? Our country is just baffling at this point. There's just nothing that makes sense anymore. I must be in the twilight zone. I'm waiting for the voice of Rod Serling to pop up behind my head and start giving commentary about the weird world I live in now. Okay? That is what burns my ass. And it burns the ass of a lot of other American people. It really does. People are sick and tired of the economy swinging right and then left and right and left. And also politicians getting away with things. What really makes me mad is if you ever listen to politicians talk, and let's say, for example, they ask Joe Biden, why are you letting all these people, or Alejandro Mayorkas, why are you letting all these people in? He would never answer the question. I think if you hold public office, you cannot obfuscate from the answers. You have to say, this is why I'm letting this many people in. I believe immigration, this about immigration. I believe these people deserve a chance. But you should have to say that out loud so the American people know why you're doing what you're doing. Because right now, it's all a big gasp because none of them have told you why they're doing it. It's all speculation. I mean, what I said about the voting, that could be wrong. I don't think it is, but they're not telling us why they're doing. They're not telling us our motivation for letting this many people and putting every American in risk across the country. All for what? Votes? For representation? For electors? Insane. Why would anybody support a president who does that? Now you add the fact that what happened at the debates, and the emperor has no clothes. I mean, come on. Most other people, except for the people that loved him, had blinders on. They couldn't see it. And everybody else has. See, I said a long time ago, the Democrats should have gotten a different candidate a long time ago. And both parties make horrible decisions, and I've seen it. I mean, last year there should have been a big red wave, but it didn't happen because the Republicans allowed the vote in the Supreme Court about abortion and overturned it. And that's why there wasn't a big red wave last November. Instead of doing, there's no, I don't, there's no discretion. There's no, there's just not good. There's just not thinking things out and planning things out. It seems to be happening randomly and without great decision making. I don't know who's making decisions, but they're all wrong. And that's what burns my ass. This is what Americans are tired of. Okay? Look at the American auto industry. Okay? The UAW during Obama administration was willing to let the entire American auto industry go under instead of making concessions towards Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. They were actually going to let the entire American auto industry collapse instead of making concessions. And you know why that is? Unions. Unions should idealistically be a great thing for every American in this country. But they're just as bad as the corporations. The only people that are making the money are the people running the unions. The people that are putting their money out of their every check into the union are getting screwed. They're not getting what they're paying for. Okay? There should be a tea party on unions. They should be totally revolutionized, just like the courts should be revolutionized. Things need to change because all we're doing is the same thing over and over and over again since Ronald Reagan. George Bush Sr., that just lengthened Ronald Reagan. Then Clinton. Then Bush Jr. Then Obama. Then Trump. Then Biden. It's just back and forth, back and forth. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we're expecting a different results, which makes no sense. Let it burn your ass too. Let's stop this. Let's use this channel and our discussions to try to bring about change. I appreciate you listening to my channel. I appreciate you listening to me. I hope you like what burns my ass, and I hope that we can just make this channel grow. Okay, I need it to grow because I'm an example of somebody who's worked their whole lives and gotten very little or nowhere through a bunch of slips, and I'll discuss those stories, how I ended up where I am right now. But I can relate to a huge portion of the Americans right now who has no retirement coming to them. And that's a scary thought because we don't even know if Social Security is going to be around. Anyways, again, thank you for listening to my channel. Please like and subscribe. And just remember, what burns my ass probably burns your ass too. Thanks for listening.